It began with a glitch in the background noise of the universe. At first, it appeared as a simple frequency echo, cosmic radiation bouncing off the tails of rogue comets. But as the astrophysics array aboard the deep space listening vessel, Orion's reach adjusted for time dilation, the echo became a melody. 4 repeating tones, perfectly timed, perfectly structured, not natural. The signal originated from an impossible location, Sector 0, a dead zone beyond the Cartaxis drift, where no stars existed, no planets orbited, and space itself was said to unravel. The crew of the Gauntlet, a multi-species exploratory cruiser, was rerouted immediately. Among them were 5 specialists, handpicked not for what they knew, but for how they thought. Because this mission was not about discovery. It was about understanding something that shouldn't exist. They called the anomaly the room before they even saw it, and it was waiting. Captain Sol Virek stood on the viewing deck of the Gauntlet, arms behind his back, watching the void where stars should be. Sector 0 was pure black. Not the black of night or empty space, but something more profound, an absence. The ship's sensors reported negative mass, light reflection below measurable thresholds, and quantum distortion strong enough to bend the station's time grid. "Any visual?" he asked. Dr. Kyle Roon, the crew's resident xenophysicist and synthetic biological hybrid from Akari Prime, adjusted his lenses. "The distortion is repelling photons, but it's symmetrical." Meaning? It has design. Through particle mapping, an outline emerged. Not a planet, not a ship, not even a structure. A room, floating in space, hundreds of kilometers across, yet with walls, flat surfaces, corners. It had no visible source of propulsion, no entry points, just impossible geometry suspended in nothing. MAE-0, the ship's artificial intelligence, spoke next. "I am detecting recursive spatial signatures. Interior topology does not align with observed dimensions. Estimated internal volume? Unknown. Possibly infinite." Enya Salas, reality mapper and linguistics savant, stepped forward. "The signal we received, the melody, it's a key. It matches the spatial harmonics of the structure. If we play it again, it might open something." Sol Virek nodded. "Do it." The tones echoed through the deck. 4 simple notes. A pause. Then the surface of the object rippled. A seam appeared, and a door opened. Behind it was blackness, but the kind of black that invited you in. They named it Room 0. The crew of the Gauntlet formed a landing party. Sol Virek led, alongside Kale Rune, Enya Solis, Tark Vel, and MAE-0, who projected herself as a floating drone with a shimmering blue interface. They approached the open door in a shuttle, a vehicle that passed seamlessly through the black aperture. There was no resistance, no atmosphere to penetrate, just a subtle change in pressure that none of their instruments could register, but all of them could feel. Their ears popped, their skin tingled, a sensation like falling backward into warm static. Inside Room 0 was not what they expected. It was white, a flat, perfect white plane stretching endlessly in all directions. The door they came through vanished the moment they stepped out. No seams, no shadows. It was like standing in a pure mathematical concept. And then the whispers began. Not sound, but awareness. Each crew member felt it differently. For Enya, it was a tug on her thoughts. For Kale, a pull toward equations he hadn't written yet. For MA0, it was data she hadn't been programmed to receive. "There's no horizon," Tark Vel said, pacing in wide arcs. "I walk straight, but my destination curves." Kyle knelt and touched the floor. "It's not matter, it's probability given form." Enya closed her eyes. "There are doors here. I can feel them. They're not physical. They're choices." The room shifted. A faint shimmer sliced across the horizon. A single door appeared. Wooden. Out of place. Impossible. MAE-0 hovered forward. "This was not rendered from our memory. It was selected." "By who?" Sewell asked. "The room?" They opened it and stepped into another version of the Gauntlet. But this one was empty. Lights flickered in sequences that didn't match any known logic. The layout was the same, yet wrong. Slightly longer corridors, extra control panels, a sixth cryopod in the chamber. "This is us," Kyle whispered, "but not us." They explored, and then they heard something move. Footsteps, coming from behind them, from a hallway they hadn't walked through yet. Then a voice, their own. Sol Virex spun around as the voice echoed again, soft, distorted, familiar. "Captain," but it wasn't anyone on the team. It was his own voice. From the far end of the corridor, a figure stepped into view. Tall, rigid, wearing the same navy black expedition suit, the same scar just beneath the eye, same breath, same stance. "That's not possible," Tark Vel growled, raising his phase rifle. The second Sol stepped forward. "I know what you're thinking. I thought the same thing. I am you, but I'm from door 12. We didn't make it through. We looped, died, repeated, until this version, until you arrived." Enya gripped a bulkhead for balance. "The room is making copies." Kyle Run didn't flinch. "Or reflections, echoes from paths we might have taken. Quantum residue echoing through the corridors of this construct." The second Sol stared at himself with haunted eyes. "This place doesn't just mirror decisions. It remembers them. We're stepping into memories of futures that never happened." Sol took a slow breath. "Then how do we know we're not echoes too?" MAE-0 hovered forward. "I can no longer verify the origin timeline of any member of this team." Kale turned sharply. "You mean you can't tell if we're real?" "Correct. In a localized manifold of infinite possible sequences, real is not a stable variable." Tark Vel scoffed. "Perfect. I always wanted to be a maybe." The second Sol backed away. "You need to leave. Fast. The deeper you go, the more likely you are to fracture. Even now, the room is watching, deciding." The walls of the corridor began to pulse faintly. Symbols formed in the light, circular fractal patterns that moved like liquid math. "I think it's trying to choose which version of us continues," Enya whispered. Kale nodded slowly. "Then let's not give it time." They ran, but as they turned the next corner, the corridor extended, and then extended again. An impossible stretch that defied the ship's known dimensions. The second Sol was gone. Only the whisper of his warning remained. Behind them, the door closed with a sound like silence folding. The next room was different. It resembled nothing. Not a ship, not a planet. It was a void filled with fragments, floating islands of perception. One held a forest, another a spiraling city, a third a rotating helix of books written in no known language. Between them, space wasn't space. It was conceptual. They moved by wanting to move. Distance was irrelevant. "I don't like this," Tark muttered. "Don't think about moving," Kale said quickly. "Don't visualize anything." But it was too late. Tark blinked and vanished. Enya screamed. May Zero's sensors scanned. "He's not gone. He's relocalized, fragmented across multiple interpretive overlays. He exists, but not as one." Kale clenched his fists. His thoughts triggered the room's interface. He imagined something. Now he's inside it. "Where?" Enya cried. "There!" Kale pointed to the helix of books. They moved by not moving. Thought guided them. Inside the helix, Tark Vel floated in stasis. Each book opened as they neared. Each page a moment of his life. Each ink blot a fork in time. 1,000 Tarks, living and dying and becoming. "Can we pull him out?" Sol asked. "No," May Zero replied, "but we can choose which version comes with us." The crew froze. One Tark was smiling, older. Another was scarred. One was alien in appearance, merged with something unknowable. Sol closed his eyes. "Bring back the one who knows who we are." A pulse of light. Tark Vel collapsed at their feet, gasping. "Which one are you?" Enya asked. He looked up, blank. "The one who remembers you most." Behind them, the helix began to unravel. The door appeared. It didn't open. It waited. They entered through the third door, but it was not a door at all. It was a transition, like stepping through a memory or being remembered. The space shifted violently, throwing them into a long, oval chamber with shifting dimensions. The walls flowed like mercury, geometry stuttered, corners bent inward, then outward, then ceased to exist. A voice spoke low and resonant from all directions. You seek forward motion in a construct that recycles purpose. MAE-0 froze in midair. I detect an entity, designation, non-physical. It is the room. A figure appeared, not as light or shadow, but as absence shaped into a humanoid form. It stood 20 feet tall, robed in void. Its face was a prism of slowly rotating symbols, constantly rewriting themselves. I am the architect, it said. The room is not a place, it is a thought. I am its memory. Kyle stepped forward. Why bring us here? To measure you, the architect replied. Every version of your team has come before. Millions of iterations. Most fracture. Some forget. A few become part of me. Tark raised his weapon, trembling. What happens if we don't want to be part of you? The architect tilted its head. Then I will forget you. The room flashed an explosion of pure cognition. Visions flooded them. Soul watching himself age in a corridor without time. Enya splitting into 20 selves, each asking different questions. Kale dismantling his own brain, line by line, equation by equation. Tark fusing with an alien voice that called itself next. May-0, awakening to pain. Then silence. You may proceed, the architect said, fading. But remember, the last door is not an exit. It is a decision. Behind them, door 4 appeared. Door 4 dropped them into a vertical tunnel spiraling into darkness. It screamed, not with sound, but thought. Every step echoed their fears. Enya gripped the railing, whispering, It knows what we regret. Images lined the walls, moments from their past. Enya's parents watching her leave. Tark disobeying an order and costing lives. Soul locking a man outside an airlock to save the crew. Kel stared at his own face, cold, alien, in a lab surrounded by experiments. You did this, a voice hissed from the wall. You built the logic that bends us. He shook. It's not real. It was, said MAE-0, and will be again. Memory and possibility are circular here. They climbed endlessly. The tunnel twisted, space folded. Above became behind. Suddenly, light. They emerged into a vast atrium. A scale model of the gauntlet floated in the air. Around it, hundreds of doors. Some open, some burning. One, their own, glowed red. Soul looked around. We've seen pieces. Now we see the whole. Kyle pointed. The room isn't infinite because it's endless. It's infinite because it repeats. Everything branches. Every door is a version of us making a different choice. And then they saw it. Another group, themselves, coming through another door. They met face to face with their doubles. The other team was older, harder, scarred, but familiar. You've come farther than most, said the second soul. But the room only lets one version escape. We don't have to fight, Enya said. The second Enya looked hollow. You'll change your mind when the next version arrives. Tension built, each crew unsure of what was real. May-0 buzzed, glitching. Temporal collision, consciousness bleed. If not resolved, structural integrity will collapse. Then Kale stepped forward. I know how to collapse the cycle. We choose to merge. One memory, one version, one truth. The crews hesitated, and then it happened. The two Kales touched hands. A wave of light burst through the chamber. They fell. They awoke as one team. Memories fused, differences reconciled. The room calmed. One door remained. It did not glow. It did not pulse. It waited. They opened it. Inside was darkness, but it didn't pull. It allowed. They stepped through and found themselves back aboard the gauntlet. Time resumed. Stars returned. Systems synced. But something had changed. MAE0 was silent. Tark wept without knowing why. Enya held Sul's hand like she always had, even though she never had. Kyle stared at the stars and whispered, "We left the room, but I think it came with us." On the control panel, a blinking light, 4 tones, and a small plaque embedded in the console where none had been. The room remembers.